Namaste and welcome to Detours with me, Anuradha Goyal, where I talk to some very interesting personalities about journeys of all kinds. Guys, we are talking about this beautiful book called The Fearless Traveler, which is a medical doctor's guide to traveling, a medical doctor who loves to travel. So she has travel and especially adventure travel. So she talks about all kinds of possible adventures in this book and the do's and don'ts during these adventures, the precautions you need to take, and the things that you can do just in case things do not move the way they should. So, Dr. Monica, welcome to Insta Detours, and we want to know a little bit about you before we hear about the book. So, tell us, where did you grow up? We know you are a medical doctor, but what kind of a traveler you are?
Okay, so Anuradha, I'm basically a Kashmiri, educated in Punjab, living in Delhi, and have traveled all over the world, whether it is in India or whether it is abroad. Uh, it's mostly in terms of family travel with my two children and my husband, who's an eye specialist and a mountaineer, both. There have been travels for work for various conferences internationally, I would say, but most of the travel has been in terms of family road trips that we've done over the years, just to explore the interiors of India, whether it is doing road trips across Rajasthan to explore the Havelis there, or look at the waterfalls and the terrain across, say, Lahore Spiti, or doing an off-roading trip in our car from Delhi to Leh. So all sorts of terrains, but probably the most fascinating journeys have been the ones which have been family holidays in and around India.
I can see that you love mountains.
I do. We all do. All four of us do.
Yes, probably comes from your Kashmiri genes, but I can see that. Okay, so I want to show people the kind of information that you have stuffed in this book. There are so many tables like this which give you a very authentic information about all possible medical emergencies, medical situations that a traveler can face. I mean, we don't know all the medical terms, we don't know the situations and how to handle that situation. And there is a lot of information available on internet and Google, but there is so much of that we don't know what to trust and what not to trust. So I have a curiosity question. As a traveler, have you thought of converting this book into an app that people can use when they travel, because it's not possible to remember all this. I mean, you remember because you're a doctor, but we lay persons can't remember it.
So Anuradha, for a start, the book is actually available on a Kindle version. So most people do use Kindle, so they can download the e-version of the book. And definitely, I would look forward to your suggestions in terms of how it can be converted to an app. It's a worthwhile thought. I've purposely kept the size of the book very small so that it can easily fit into a suitcase or carry-on baggage. It weighs just 400 grams, so I don't think it's going to eat up too much of your luggage space if you carry it around. But the e-version is definitely available.
Yes. And also, we don't want to go through the whole book when I am facing a situation like a bug bite or something. So that now the next thing, like you said, there are a lot of anecdotes that you put in the book, which also shows that you are a very well-read person. And I'm going to read out one of the anecdotes that I really liked. You've, of course, written about Arunima Singh in mountaineering, and you've written about, heart transplant, very, very heartwarming heart transplant stories.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read one of the cycling. Pratik Shah, a Nepali peace activist, cycled around 150 countries of the world in 1998. Son of an Indian Gorkha regiment soldier, this intrepid youth set off on his adventure with 100 Nepali rupees in his pocket, which is roughly about 50 rupees, Indian rupees. He was kidnapped in Mexico and attacked with a knife in Barbados. His bicycle was stolen in New Zealand, and Edmund Hillary gifted him with a new one. He summited Mount Everest in May 2010 with a collection of flags of all the various countries he had visited Hats off to you, Pushkar. How did you collect all these stories? Did you read about them? Did you hear about them?
So, Anuradha, there are stories which touch our hearts. So, if you look at the
Yes.
first story, it's about the 15-year-old Bihari girl who pedaled all the way from Delhi to Bihar with her sick father during the lockdown. Again,
Yes.
Arunima is a story which is very close to my heart. This was a girl who was
Yes.
traveling on the train and was thrown off the train and got her leg amputated and ended up
Yes.
climbing Mount Everest as an amputee. So these are people who have so much of courage, so much of valor inside them that they are the ordinary people like us. They are not somebody who are a different class or a different creed of people. They are from amongst us. So they are the kind
Right.
of people who inspire us that there are no limitations, there are no boundaries to what the human mind can achieve. If your mind is made up, your body can defeat anything and everything. So it's mind over body games, which is basically there. And these are very, very common people. They are very ordinary people, but they have done something which is so extraordinary and inspiring that probably it kind of sticks in some corner of my mind, and it reminds me when I'm stuck with a, say, very sick and tricky patient in the ICU. I say, okay, if such and such person can fight it out, why not I can fight and make a diagnosis and save a life. So these are people who've inspired me in my medical profession, and these are people who've inspired me in my travel as well. So these are little stories which are there in the back of my mind, and they kind of inspire me to go ahead.
Right. In fact, whenever I hear of Arunima's story, at least it's very popular, and I always find the value of, it's a story that showcases the power of willpower, Ichha Shakti, as we say in Hindi.
Absolutely.
The power of Ichha Shakti. Once you have the Ichha, nothing can stop you, really.
True.
And I always tell people, especially youngsters who are, there's this certain set of youngsters who are always cribbing about not having things. And I always say, if you're not doing something, you are not wanting it enough yet. The day you want it enough, you will achieve it. But coming back to your book, you also have the book full of lot of quotations, and one of my favorite quotation, which I also shared on Twitter a couple of days back, was that the two best things that we can give our children is roots and wings. It's such a beautiful and such a powerful statement that you should fly, but with your feet rooted well in your own tradition, in your own soil, grounded, well grounded. So, again, these quotations, which are a lot of them in the book, tell me that you are very, very well read. So, I want to talk to the reader in you. Where do you find time? And also the fact that you do so many things, you have a very, very demanding profession, a stressful profession. You travel so much, you write, and then how do you find time to read? Because most people, especially up north, tell me that they don't have time to read.
Okay, so Anuradha, when we were in school, I have two other sisters. So there was no Kindle, there was no computer, and all three of us were literally bookworms. We were fond of sports, but if we had one novel to read, then one person would be facing the novel from one end and reading, and the other person would read the page the other side. And we were pretty good at reading at any fast speed. And
That's
I've
like a
grown
good
up.
thing on sharing economy.
Yeah, literally from Enid Blyton and Perry Mason to Tintin in Tibet and Tintin in Egypt. I think a lot of my inspiration for travel has come from my Tintin comics that I read during childhood.
Right,
That I wanted to explore Egypt and I wanted to look at Tibet and say as to what Tintin has done out there. So a lot
right.
of reading went into those kind of books as a child, but later on in life, then it was more into philosophies of life, whether it was the monk who sold his Ferrari or it was the alchemist or other such books in terms of the philosophies. And I was a debater in school, so the quotations and the quotes came
Quotation.
naturally in terms of taking participation in various debates at various levels. So the quotations kind of became part of the rhetoric in terms of speaking then.
So, based on your travels, if you have to sum up your travels and your travel experiences in one quote, what would that be?
I think probably the first one, what Winston Churchill says, if you're going through hell, keep going. So don't get deterred at any point of time. That little last bit of the run is the most important. You have to reach the finishing line, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to tap on your last reserves of energy to achieve your target. So don't get disheartened if there are challenges coming your way. The more the
Mm-hmm.
challenges, the more exciting is the prize at the end of the road.
Right. I will tell you, this is my book, and its first chapter actually starts with a Sanskrit quote, a Subhashitani, which is essentially the same. It says, Yojana nam sahasram tu shaner gachet pipilika. An ant can, cover 1,000 miles just by walking slowly. So it's the same thing. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and
Exactly.
you keep going. In fact, I have a post. I'll share it with you. I have a post on, the Sanskrit quotes on travel. A lot of them, and they're as inspiring, if not more, than this.
That's really
Uh,
fascinating.
Yes, yes, it's fascinating. I'm actually doing a little bit of research on the yatra traditions of India. So I keep reading a lot of these stuff. But today we are talking about your book. So I'm going to talk about, you have spoken about food throughout the book, for all kinds of travels. If you are on the mountains, what should you eat? If you are in the sea, if you are in the jungle, if you are a young traveler, if you are an old traveler, if you are a pregnant traveler. So you've covered a whole ground. But in general, I want to ask you, what kind of a food should one eat while traveling? Because we know that maximum problems, maybe not the extreme ones, but the ones which are good enough to spoil your holiday, happen due to consumption of bad food. So, what are top three, four precautions we should take while traveling on eating? And this is important because today we have a generation which travels to eat.
So I'll start with a disclaimer that I am also a foodie. And I
Yes,
believe that if you're traveling cuisine of the country, okay, you can't really be looking for pili dal and chawal any corner of the world. You have to try
right,
what the
right.
natives are eating, okay?
Yes, yes,
So the bottom line is that whatever you're eating needs to be hygienic. You
yes,
don't want to spoil your entire holiday with the deli. The food choices
yes.
that you make when you're trying the local cuisine has to be such that you are picking up things which are either freshly cooked, meaning something which is steaming hot,
Hmm,
something which is in tetra packs, or something which can be peeled.
hmm,
Looking at in terms of the food quality, I don't
mhm,
say that it is wrong to eat street food, but if the street food is being served in non-disposable glasses and utensils, then it may not be very hygienic. So disposable utensils, steaming hot street food is safe. Whatever is
mhm,
cold, whatever is raw is going to harbor infection. So,
hmm,
if you don't have the luxury of eating something which is being served fresh, pick up anything which is in a Tetra pack. You are sure that at least the quality will be clean. So, you don't want
mhm.
to have diarrhea and keep running to the loo. And looking for a loo at most places is a challenge because you are outdoors and there are no clean loos to go to.
Especially for
So, food,
women.
especially for women, right? You don't want that situation happening. So, go ahead and enjoy the street food, go ahead and enjoy the local cuisine, but select foods which are hot, select foods which are hygienically packed, select mineral water, select bottled water, select tetra packs of juices. Anything which is canned is okay. Anything which is open, anything which can have dust and flies on it is a bad idea. Anything which has been cooked and is being reheated and served from morning till night, which has cut onions, green chutneys, much that we love them, may be a source of looking at as far as the food is concerned. And again, if you look
But
specifically
freshly
on the
fried
food
samosa
during
and
travel,
kachori is good, right? A freshly fried
okay, you can
samosa,
have a
kachori,
fried
jalebi
samosa,
is good.
Anuradha. Okay, so fried samosa, kachori, and jalebi, as long as you're not hara chutney and pyaz with them, is safe because they are steaming hot. Okay,
Right,
so those are still okay.
right,
But anything which has dahi or anything which has cut onions or green chutney may not be a good idea. So that's how you would look at it. You can have a burger, but ask them not to put the salad. Then it is in terms of the specific travel. So, for example, when you're going for the summit night, you need
right.
extra carbohydrates on the mountain because for the brain, you need carbs as a source of energy. So carbs are a good idea in terms of consuming when you're mountaineering. When you're on a
Right.
cruise, you don't want anything heavy and you don't want anything fizzy because you will get more seasickness. So the kind
Right.
of food choices would depend on where you are traveling and what kind of travel. As
Right.
long as it's hygienic, it's good to be a foodie. Enjoy your food, but just make sure that the uh, food is clean that you're consuming. Salads are a big no-no. Whether you eat a salad in a five-star or whether you eat a salad as a part of a wayside, believe me, salads can never be cut clean. Anybody who loves salad, please cut them at your house and consume them. Don't eat salads when you're eating outside. None of the salads are safe. The maximum amount of rain-related diarrhea that we get in the monsoon season is related to salads.
Is the same true for buffets?
Yeah.
Buffets in hotels they have these buffets.
Yeah, so
So
again, the same logic that if the buffet is serving something which is a hot dish, which is cooked properly, it is okay. Something which has a Russian salad or something which has dahi bhalla or chaat, if you're not really sure about the quality, please don't pick that up because you don't want to fall sick and spoil your entire vacation.
okay, because my experience of buffets is that it's laid out, let's say 4 at 5 in the evening, and it's out there open till about 11 in the night or 12 in the night. So if you are
Yeah,
eating late, then the food has been exposed to a lot of stuff.
true,
So,
true,
if
true.
possible, avoid. I mean, I have now reached an age where I want to eat simple and stay safe, stay as comfortable as possible so that you can experience a lot. But tell me, when there are younger travelers, like people in their 20s, 30s, when you can literally eat anything, survive anything, manage most of the things, how does that impact your later years?
I think we've all gone through that phase where we want to get our money's worth. And if I'm paying, say, a 1500 rupees for a buffet, I would want to practically load my plate with everything that's on the menu. But what we don't realize is that all that grease is getting deposited in the arteries of our heart. Okay.
Right,
So if
right,
somebody gets a heart problem, they are not getting a heart problem suddenly when they turn 50 or 60. That origin
right,
of a heart problem starts right from childhood. So, in terms
right.
of if you're looking at a water pipe which is getting clogged layer by layer by layer till the pipe of water gets clogged totally, the same with the arteries of the heart. So, I
Hmm.
would say that if you're looking at a buffet, please pick up things sensibly. If I have a choice
Hmm.
between a white meat and a red meat, I would anyway go for a white meat rather than for a red meat, which is very high in cholesterols. So similarly, if you have things which are, say, roasted or baked, they would be a much better option rather than a butter gravy kind of a butter chicken or a butter paneer kind of a thing. So buttery gravies and greasy stuff is something which will not only make you bloated, you will feel acidic, you will not enjoy your holiday, but at the same time it is damaging in the long run. So your food choices have to be such that you're taking, okay, it's fine to take a fish, it is fine to take a chicken thing, but you would prefer a grilled fish and a roasted chicken rather than a butter chicken kind of a thing any day, because
Hmm.
A, you're still enjoying the food, B, you're able to satisfy your hunger, and C, you're
Hmm.
not damaging your heart. So that's how I would look at it.
One big thing that I picked up from your book is you repeatedly say that don't be shy to ask for help. Don't be shy in asking for help if you really need help. And I think you're essentially trying to say don't push asking for help to a time when help may not be able to help. So keep
Exactly.
asking help for
Yeah,
help.
yeah, yeah.
So on that note, do you want to talk about what inhibitions do people have in asking for help?
Okay, so let's look at two kind of travelers. One is the able-bodied travelers, and one is the travelers with special needs. I think both have the same mindset in the sense that I know everything. I don't want to look dependent, and I don't want to look like a fool. So most people are hesitant about asking for any sort of a help. In most countries of the world, they are trying to accommodate tourists with special needs, whether it is in terms of low floor buses or in terms of
Mhm.
ramps or in terms of
Mhm.
hotel rooms with special facilities for people who are deaf and dumb or blind, people with disabilities. But a lot of countries of the world still don't have those kind of infrastructure, including in a lot of tourist places in India. We had the Accessible India campaign run a few years back in India, where we
I
wanted
know.
to say that all the tourist destinations in India should be accessible to all people with all sorts of disabilities. Now, having said that, most of us feel embarrassed to ask for help and we delay it for too long. So we have to be outright and we have to be specifying right from the beginning when we book with a travel agent that, okay, I am a person with special needs. I need a bigger room with a wider space if I'm on a wheelchair, or I need some kind of assistance when I land there if I have any kind of hearing or speech difficulties. It's very important in terms of carrying an emergency card in your pocket, which gives your name, your address, your emergency contact numbers, allergies, what sort of medication that you're on. You need a travel certificate from your doctor if you're carrying any specific equipment. You need extra batteries for your hearing aid. And a lot of times there are people who are in inclusive groups. The mindset of travelers has changed in the sense that we have these groups where they are able-bodied people along with people with special needs traveling as a group together. And people are very, very happy offering help. It's just that we are scared of asking for help. So until
Right.
that mentality changes and we are able to ask for help when we need it and look for a buddy as a companion to travel, those challenges will remain. So the times are changing. The traveling is becoming more inclusive. The traveling is becoming more accommodative. The hotels and the travel industry is more aware of the needs of people. They know that a person with blindness wants to travel, a person on a wheelchair needs to travel, or a person with, say, Parkinson's or a elderly person needs to travel. So people are trying to help other travelers out in times of need. It's just that you need to raise your voice and say that, okay, I need help. Until and unless you voice it out and you're too embarrassed to say it, people will not be forthcoming in terms of helping you out.
Right. So, in terms of carrying a first aid box with you, whatever, so apart from any regular medicines that we take, what are the 5 or 10 things that we must carry with us?
Okay, so let's divide the emergency box into three things. One is your regular medicines that you're on with a
Right.
doctor's prescription, which says what is the diagnosis that you're suffering from and what are
Mhm.
the medications that you're on. And if you're
Right.
traveling, say, for a 3-month vacation, I would say carry medicines for 4 months because
Yeah.
sometimes your travel gets delayed and you are staying in a destination for too long and you run out of medicines. Sometimes you have lost medicines, sometimes you have misplaced medicines, or you may need a much higher dose than what you are doing. So 3 weeks
Right.
of travel, carry 4 weeks of medicine. 3 months of travel, carry 4 months of medicines. There's no harm in carrying extra
I
rather than
actually
running
to
out
carry
of
double,
medication.
I
Exactly. So
usually
do that,
carry
but
double.
you need a doctor's prescription. Most airlines may at times open your bags if you're carrying medicines in bulk and see that whether there's a doctor's prescription or not. Some medicines which are the narcotic group are an absolute no-no. So we are very fond of medicines like Ultracet or Tramadol in our country, but if you travel to UAE, it comes under the narcotics. So
Right.
check with your doctor as to what medicines are permitted in which countries or not when you are getting a prescription made. So that's your part of the prescription. Then there is a general set of medicines that you need to carry for diarrhea, for constipation, for allergies, for sleep, for giddiness or a lightheadedness, for nausea, vomiting. So those are the general set of medicines which your doctor again can add to your list. Then is in terms of specific things like band-aids or sunscreens or insect repellents that you need to add to your first aid kit. And
Mhm.
lastly is in terms of any kind of specific needs. Say, for example, if you're using contact lenses, remember to put the contact lens solution in your bag. Or if you're using a hearing aid, you need extra batteries for your hearing aid that you don't run out of batteries. So those would include the contents of a first aid kit.
Mhm.
And lastly, the kit should include a little bit of a first aid manual in terms of what quick things you can do. Or if you don't want to carry a manual, just get familiar with dealing with routine stuff. You can look in
Right.
my book, it mentions most of the stuff.
Yes,
But
yes, yes.
the point is that you need an emergency card when you travel. It should mention your details, your personal details, your diagnosis, your medicines, your contact numbers and names at home, back home to contact. And if you have a medical insurance policy when you're traveling, a travel insurance, it should have the details of the travel insurance so that, God forbid, if you need to avail your insurance, at least the people who open your bag are able to see as to who you are and what needs to be done about that. So that travel card, the emergency information card, is a must to be carrying along.
Right. Right. Yeah. In fact, one of your chapters on bites, insect bites, reminded me of a conversation I had with a wildlife photographer. And he said, you will never get killed by a tiger or a leopard or a lion, but an insect bite can kill you. And I have suffered it. I went for a jungle trek or something, and some insect bite, and I had an allergy, and I had to suffer it for 6 months. And the doctor said, I can give you an anti-allergic and you will sleep, but this has to get out of your blood and it will get out on its own. So you have to suffer through it. It's so, and most people are not aware of it. I have seen young women, wearing small little spaghetti tops and going for jungle walks. And I have
High
to tell
heels
them,
as well.
this
Most
is
of them
not
would be
the
wearing
place.
high heels, pencil heels as well, along with the spaghetti tops. The heels go
Yes,
together.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So exposing a lot of skin in jungle can be absolutely injurious because you don't know what will bite and it will show up after a week or so, and then you'll suffer through it. So, any such tips for people any such tips that you've seen in your experience, the common sense things that people miss. These are common sense things, but people miss.
So I think the most important thing is to dress appropriately. A,
Mhm,
if you are going to a hot environment, you want cotton clothes, not synthetic clothes, light colored
mhm,
clothes, not black and dark colored clothes. And you want to cover
mhm,
as much of the body as possible to prevent insect bites from happening. So when you're going on a jungle safari or you're going out on a trek, you're not going out on a fashion parade. You can flaunt all your clothes
absolutely.
and your jewelry when you are out in a party in Delhi, but the jewelry
Yeah.
and the clothes are not meant for the jungle. Okay, so you have to
Right.
dress up sensibly. You have to have a sun hat. You have to have your goggles. You have to have your sun protection gear. And most importantly, is in terms of using your insect repellents and your sunscreens. So now most of the people ask that if I have to use a insect repellent and a sunscreen, which do I use first? So the trick is that you use the sunscreen on your face first and then put the insect repellent on top, because the insect repellent, if you use first and dab sunscreen on top of it, the insect repellent will not work.
Mm,
Again, if you have to buy a sunscreen, you have to buy a sunscreen with at least a 30 plus sun protection factor, or an SPF as it is called, because the sunscreen will wear off after some time and you'll get intense sunburns. Use the
mhm,
sunscreen at least 30 minutes before you venture out, and every
mhm,
90 minutes you refresh the sunscreen. So a rule of 30, a 30 SPF sunscreen, use 30
mhm,
minutes before and refresh it after every 90 minutes. If you're doing any kind of water sports, then pick up a
mhm,
sunscreen which has a water resistant component to it, and again keep refreshing that. Similarly, when you're using insect repellents, make sure that you're using it only on the exposed areas. You don't need to put an insect repellent inside your clothes. It doesn't make any sense.
right.
You don't spray it in such a way that it enters your eyes or your mouth. So you put it on your hand and you dab it on your face rather than spraying it on your face directly. And
Right.
most insect repellents are safe for babies and pregnant women, so they can be safely used. But the
So,
best protection still is clothing. Nothing
yes,
can
and
protect you
also,
as well as clothing does.
yeah, even as a traveler, I don't really use most of these things. Insect repellent, yes, you have to use when you are in jungle, but I don't use. I avoid using most of this chemical based stuff. So, I was just wondering for sunscreen, we should have some traditional stuff in India which we can use. Or I typically use a cap to protect, direct sun exposure, or a dupatta to avoid sun. I think sometimes I feel our dupattas were made for these kind of multi-purpose things to
Yeah, true,
use for
true.
something, and it's the best protection without really using anything. So any such
Absolutely.
traditional ways to avoid sun at least?
So I think all our headgears, whether you look at a Punjabi or whether you look at a Bihari, our headgears are very, very protective compared to any of the other customary
Right.
dresses anywhere else in the world. So as long as you have a dupatta or a stole or a scarf to wrap around your head and around your neck, why do you want a cap which looks like a Lawrence of Arabia? You very well may use your
Right.
dupatta and protect yourself from
Right.
the sun and
Right.
save yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So I always say that, use a lot of traditional wisdom, and these headgears and these were designed for the weather of this land, you know. So we have Ramakrishna ji, who's a tourism teacher. He says, I use lemongrass cream or spray while on trek.
So,
So,
oil of lemon eucalyptus is one of the best insect repellents. So, that comes as a plant derivative. So, most of these insect repellents are actually plant derivatives. They don't necessarily have chemicals in them. So, you can pick up an insect repellent which is a plant derivative. So, I do agree with him totally.
yes, yes. Uh, you have given very interesting country region specific. Do we have any country region specific medical portals like any country? You've spoken about the general countries that we visit usually, but as a traveler, if I want to go to a random country and I want to check what are the medical requirements that I need to fulfill to enter the country, like some places you need to have a yellow fever injection, or some places you need is there a medical portal available to check all these which is updated?
So I think the most updated information you get is on two websites. One is the WHO website because they keep updating their requirements as far as the polio vaccine is concerned or the yellow fever vaccine, because these are two vaccines where the requirements keep changing. So
And now
WHO website
now COVID
definitely is
vaccine.
very good, and the other is in terms of Center for Disease Control or the CDC website, which is the US website, which gives a very detailed information as to which country what malaria prophylaxis, which country you do need mandatory yellow fever vaccine, where you would use it as an optional meningitis vaccine, and so on and so forth. So CDC has a very detailed information, and WHO has a very detailed information. So you can log into WHO or CDC and look at any country of the world. It would give you information on that.
Okay. So, but we don't have any India-based portal which tells us that if, as Indian citizens, if we want to travel to a certain region, are there any requirements we need, especially now with COVID requirements, which are changing almost on a daily basis.
Yeah, so the
It would
Ministry
make
of Health
sense.
and Family Welfare, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare again keeps updating its requirements as far as COVID travel is concerned. And again, the
Mm-hmm.
Ministry of Health and Family Welfare website gives you a fair idea that if you go to Northeast, you would find more drug-resistant malaria. If you're traveling towards North India, you would have more drug-sensitive malaria, those kind of things. So there are region-specific information available from the Ministry of Health website that are there, but those are more regional in terms of India specific rather than in terms of general for all the countries of the world. And
That's what
the
I
Ministry of
also.
Health updates. It does
But
update.
is that friendly for a lay person, for a lay traveler? Is it easy to use? I doubt that.
You would need help to interpret it. You would need
Right.
help.
So you are probably used to it, and you are obviously educated, and you are from a medical profession. So it's, but even I, as a very, very savvy, internet savvy person, I would find it difficult to, meander through and find the information. So probably there's an opportunity for young entrepreneurs, young medical entrepreneurs to set up a portal which gives updated information. I'm sure it can be a great opportunity to create. Now, another thing that fascinated me about the book is your great knowledge about the equipment, whether it's scuba diving equipment, whether it's skydiving equipment, whether it's cycling, whether it's, cars and vehicles, or even cruise ships. Where did you gather all this information, the technical information about all this?
So Anuradha, you tend to learn from your mistakes. So the first time we picked up a rain jacket for a mountaineering trip, it really didn't work, and it was soaking wet, everything. And climbing
Mm-hmm.
a mountain in wet gear makes a hell of a
I've done
problem,
that.
believe me that.
I have done
So
that.
once you start speaking to fellow travelers, you realize that what is the best practices anywhere in the world, especially who are people who are traveling from abroad would tell you about a Gore-Tex jacket, or they would tell you about the
Mm-hmm.
best equipment, which is the lightest weight equipment because you don't want to carry too much of weight around.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you're going for any kind of scuba, whether you need certifications, what kind of precautions, whether you're fit for it, unfit for it. So a lot of these things have been gathered over the years from our own trips, whether it was road trips to, for example, Leh. You would have all kinds of terrains. Leh
Mm-hmm.
is a beautiful destination, but when you're traveling through the sands, it's a cold desert. You have snow above and you have sand below. So you need two sets of clothes in your car. You need the summer clothes and the winter clothes, because the moment you get down at a pass, you are surrounded by snow and it's freezing cold. The moment you get into the car, it's boiling hot. So a lot of this information is personal experiences over the travel years, and a lot of it is also from other people who've traveled with us as fellow travelers, and we learned from their best practices as to what they were doing, which was better than our equipment available here, and what we could pick up. So anybody can go and buy a pair of trekking shoes, but until and unless you break into your shoes, if you just bought it from Decathlon the previous day and you start trekking the next day, you will end up with a bad shoe bite. You have to break your shoes. So same kind of little tricks that you learn over the years. I think that's what has gone into the book, is all the joy of learning from our own mistakes and from the mistakes of our fellow travelers. So the experiences
Right.
we gathered over the years is what has gone into writing of this equipment bit.
Yes, and you have actually summed up your book towards the end by talking about the medical tourism opportunities. Be it dental tourism, like you said, there is a city called Molar City, and all that. So, what do you see is as the potential for medical tourism for India? And do you think it's picking up? It can pick up, or we shouldn't try it? I mean, what's your opinion?
So let's understand medical tourism perspective in India. There are two cadres of tourists who come for medical tourism in India. One is from the European and American nations, because traditionally, if somebody needs to get a joint replacement done in Europe or US, the cost is sky high, and there is a waiting period of 1 to 2 years before you can get a knee replacement surgery done. Here, you can get a knee replacement at the drop of a hat. So that is one
Right.
aspect of people who are on a long waiting list as far as European nations or the Americas are concerned, as far as treatment is concerned. And the second set of tourism is people who are coming from countries where they don't have the technology and the state of the art medical facilities. For example, for IVF treatment for infertility in women, a lot of women will come from neighboring countries where they don't have any IVF facilities, and they are in desire of a child and have been trying for years together without getting pregnant. So they would come for IVF treatment. Dental treatment is a big demand because the cost of dental treatment in India is much lower than most of the other countries of the world. So we are somewhere in the middle in terms of medical tourism, because we are not top of the line, but we are still very safe and very clean compared to most of the other countries which are offering medical tourism facilities. So a lot of high-end medical tourism, as well as in terms of a lot of basic medical tourism demands, are being met with in India in terms of joint replacements, in terms of surgical requirements, in terms of pregnancy and IVF related, dental related demands. Simple things like cataract, or for that matter, glasses removal or a LASIK surgery would be much cheaper in India compared to countries abroad. So people want to combine holiday with medicine. So somebody would get a surgery done here, then go to the beaches of Goa and then fly back to their country, or go to Agra and visit the Taj and fly back to their country. So it's a very fascinating country because we have everything to offer as far as tourism is concerned. We are
Right.
cheap as far as medical facilities are concerned, and yet we have the state of the art medical facilities. We have practically every surgical equipment and facility, from MRIs to robotic surgery, everything available in this country. So we are blessed in a way that we have the flora and the fauna, and we have the medical expertise both.
Right. And I also, but in my personal opinion, based on my travel experience, I think we need to focus a lot on the wellness tourism, which is more about preventive medicine, if you can say so. And, combining both the medical, as in the allopathy medicine, as well as our traditional systems, which help in preventing disease. Somewhere I feel uh, somebody has entered the room and they're doing some nonsense. We'll have to ignore it. Uh, so, you know, uh, I feel that India now needs to leave the world in terms of wellness rather than curing. Prevention is better than cure philosophy. So I hope somebody is listening to us and working on it. And
I
we
think
have
yoga
Kerala.
and things like yoga, and in terms of Kerali and detox, is something which has a very ancient roots as far as these things are concerned. And the people are finding more and more in terms of these traditional forms of rejuvenation, as well as in terms of preventive health. People are getting more aligned to that. So a lot of people are coming to India to discover these ancient arts of yoga and Keralis, and uh, our traditional systems are so robust that we have a lot to offer the world as far as the preventive aspect of health is concerned.
Yes. So I can only see Kerala doing a lot of wellness tourism, but I guess the rest of India can do it as well, especially the hills. Your favorite hills, the Uttarakhand, Himachal, even Kashmir can be a very great place, because in good old days, people used to go there for rejuvenation. So, there can be a lot of rehab kind of tourism where people can go for rehabs there. So great. Another thing I wanted to ask you was that, since you read a lot, what are your top 2, 3 favorite books that you would like to recommend to our uh, viewers today?
Okay, so I think the top one would still be The Alchemist. It's something which
Okay.
is very, very close to my heart. The
Okay.
philosophy of how a shepherd can go in search of treasures, and in the end, he gets inspired by simple little things like a snake or the sand dunes. So, the philosophy in The Alchemist is very simple to imbibe in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
the other one would be probably A Woman Alone. These are travel tales about women who've traveled to various regions of the world. And in terms of a true fearless traveler, women who are undertaking journeys all across the globe. So, A Woman Alone is something that I would still cherish as a book.
Okay. I would recommend you to read a book called Sahara. It's written by a woman who walked along the Sahara Desert all by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find fascinating, I had the opportunity to kind of release her book at the book launch in India, and so I had long conversations with her. And what is fascinating is the amount of preparation she did. So walking was one part of it, which was rather easier once she knew how much she has to walk, and she picked up like 25 kilometers a day, and dealing with locals as a white woman. But the amount of preparation she did in terms of learning how to read the sky, how to how to uh, deal with a camel, how to buy a camel, and take care of the camel on a day-to-day basis, how to load a camel, unload a camel. It's fascinating and it's so inspiring. So that's a book I would recommend you read. Going by what you've written, you like adventure, so these are the kind of adventures which are
So I
really,
think if
really.
you look at Anuradha, the last chapter of this book by Sanjeev, my husband's written his way of preparing for each trek. And
Yes.
for one trek to happen, one mountaineering trip to happen, is a year of preparation before that trip, in terms
Absolutely.
of not just the kind of training and equipment and gear, but in terms of aligning your mental faculties in terms of that, yes, I have to accept that challenge. And every person says that I'm a crazy woman to let her husband go to such treacherous mountains every time with no telephonic contact and everything. But I think the every little nitty gritty counts so much to the preparation for a trip, that the success of a trip is not actually making the journey. The success of a trip is preparing right for that journey, and that is what all this book is about. That it's not just booking the tickets and going on a holiday. It's how you plan for that holiday, what you want to incorporate into that holiday. Gone there, done that kind of a thing, that you don't want to do 10 touristy destinations. You would pick up 2 and enjoy those, rather than do 10 things in one go, and you're so exhausted at the end of the trip that you wonder whether it was a holiday or whether it was just a touch and go kind of an experience. So I think the journey itself starts right from the conception of a journey, that you want to make a trip. It's not just the trip alone, it's the thought and the
Absolutely.
planning that goes into a trip, whether it is the mountains or whether it is in terms of the cruise or whether it is in terms of a jungle safari.
Or
If
a
it's
pilgrimage
traveling with your
even.
children or if it is traveling with your parents and grandparents, each is a different ball game altogether in terms of planning that. So each traveler is different. Each traveler is totally unique.
Yes, in fact, I would say from my personal experience that I enjoy the planning part as much as I enjoy traveling, because I end up reading books about the destination, researching about destination. But at the same time, I also leave a certain space for what I say, the magic to happen.
Unexpected. Yeah, the
The
unexpected,
magic
the
to
thrill.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
some unstructured time. Don't fill up your time, from minute to minute. Then the magic has no space to happen. So you should always leave some unstructured time for generally wandering around, meeting people, or letting the destination do what it wants to do with you. In the mountains, it happens very easily because after dark, you have literally nothing. I mean, you can't really go around much. So you sit around and talk to people, and do something. Tell us about, have you done stargazing in the mountains?
Yeah, there was once a comet shower which was happening a few years back, and we actually went looking for that to one of these places in Rajasthan, and it was freezing cold in the middle of the night in January, and we were sitting out in the cold on the grass with just thin blankets and looking at the sky with the comet shower happening. So it was perhaps one of the best stargazing moments in terms of seeing so many comets together. So it was beautiful.
Yes, that's one of the experiences I always, I mean, I have not done stargazing per se, but I camped at Chandratal in Himachal, in
Yeah.
Lahore. And at night, I think it was not planned, but I had to step out to go to the washroom, and I was like dumbstruck. It was like stars are hanging above my head.
It's
In
one
the
of the
plains, you
clearest.
don't see.
It's one of the clearest skies there in Chandratal and that area. You can literally see every kind of star formation in terms of the galaxies that you can see in the sky on any
Right,
day. Delhi,
right.
unfortunately, I don't get to see much stars, so these are the places where you
Maybe
would
COVID
actually
gave
go and
you
see.
that little bit of opportunity.
True, true, true. Very true.
Okay. Yeah. So, you have a lot of very interesting information. I learned a lot from your book. For example, things like women on waves. Now, I'm not going to discuss that because I want people to read about it. But there are a lot of these things that many people are not aware of. But you have filled in, like I said, you filled in so much information in this that I find it difficult to believe that you've experienced all of this. There's a lot of information of all possible kinds of travel. Just a little this thing that one small feedback I have, and if you can correct that in the next this thing, is that you have some beautiful photographs by Piyush Jain ji, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but there are no captions. So a lot of pictures I wanted to know where was I clicked and I couldn't find out. So maybe in the next edition, if you can put captions on where was that picture clicked, so that curiosity would be satisfied.
Yeah,
Okay,
so Dr.
somebody,
Piyush Jain is actually a cardiologist and a fellow traveler. He's a cardiologist, one of the leading cardiologists in Delhi, but very fond of
okay,
photography. And we've done many trips together, me and Sanjeev and Dr. Piyush. So we
right,
discussed writing captions under the pictures, but then we felt that each picture is worth 1,000 words. So I didn't want to draw the attention from the picture to the caption. So in the end, we decided that let's not put captions because I want the reader to enjoy the beauty and the depth of the picture rather than to get hooked onto the caption. So purposely we left out the captions because I felt that each picture was kind of self-explanatory.
yes,
But
they're
I'm sure
beautiful.
Dr. Piyush would love to talk to you. He has a story behind each picture that is there in the book. There is a tale to tell behind each
Yes, we'll
picture
speak
in
to
the book.
him someday, and please do tell him that all his pictures are stunning. They're very, very beautiful pictures, and that's why they invoke curiosity. Where is it clicked? It's more like, I always say that a good picture or a good story invokes the greed in you that, oh, I also want to go there. So I want to know where it was clicked to go.
This man can
So,
find beauty in everything. He can find beauty in
yes,
a coconut. He can find beauty in a wayside rickshaw wala. He can literally see beauty in everything around him. So he's very fascinating as a person and as a human being. He's a great cardiologist, but his photographs are simply fabulous.
he's probably seen too many hearts, literally.
We've spent many Sundays going through thousands of his picture collections to finally boil down to 150 photographs that are there in this book. We didn't want to take down anything from the internet and put it into the book. I wanted all original pictures. So there's not even one picture from the internet in the book. Each
Yes,
picture is an
yes.
original one.
Yes, yes. I have seen that most of the pictures are by Piyush and some pictures are by Poonam Chandel, Mohammad Yahya. I'm sure they are all your friends contributing the pictures, but most of them are by Piyush ji, I guess. So please
So
do tell him
Muhammad
that.
Yahya has gone on a Hajj, so I wanted pictures of the Hajj, so he gave me pictures for the Hajj. Poonam Chandel did the trek to Kailash Mansarovar herself, so that's where the picture came from. And then there's a picture from the Thikse Monastery, which I am a firm believer in, and there is a picture by Lobsang Khenrup from the Thikse Monastery. So all of these are pictures which are not from the internet. They are people who've gone there, done that, and clicked the picture.
Right. They are all very, very beautiful pictures and they enrich your book. They enrich your book very, very well.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to talk about rainy season travel. Now, like I said, I've been studying the Indian travel traditions, and in Indian travel traditions, in Chaumasa, in the 4 months of rain, they say you shouldn't travel. And if you really observe, even today in the hills, especially, you have landslides, you have floods. So it's better not to travel. Yes, we have better roads now. Yes, we have connectivity, and yes, we have means and resources to travel anytime, anywhere. But what do you think, more in terms of a philosophy? Should we travel during rainy seasons or seasons which are not really good to travel, or is it okay because we have enough resources?
So I think our forefathers did have a lot of thought going into it to say that rainy season is the time when the natural disasters tend to happen more. We've seen that in Uttarakhand over the last few years. We've seen it in various parts of the world. So they did have the foresight to kind of warn us to say that rainy season is not the best time to travel as far as the monsoons and the
Also,
rains are concerned.
infections. You pick up
Exactly.
infections
So
the most.
that's one. And the other is definitely in terms of the dengue and the malaria and the jaundice and typhoid. So all those are rain related illnesses that we're talking of. So natural disasters and illnesses together, I would say that if you have to travel, pick up months which are the non rainy months, until and unless you really want to sit in a hut and enjoy the rains outside, and that's what is your cup of tea. I would suggest not to travel during the rainy season, especially with small
Yes.
children. It's a bad idea.
Leave the people in their 20s and 30s. For most, it becomes difficult in terms of if you're traveling with elderly or with children. So I'm now getting to the point where I say that, let's respect our traditional wisdom and go. You have 8 months in the year to plan your travels, and 4 months, let the destinations also rejuvenate.
I
So
think the
even in
best
the
time why they close the jungle safaris and the tiger safaris in the rainy season, it's not just because the roads get washed out and it's too much of sickness around, but that is also the time that the animals in the forest are mating. It's so much
right,
more important for them to have that peace of mind when there is the mating happening in the forests, that it is essential not just for the illness and the ecosystem, but it is also in terms of the rejuvenation of the forests that happens during the rains. They want their peace of mind. The animals want their space without the humans encroaching upon that space. So that 4 months of the year when the forest reserves are closed to the human encroachment are so much more important for the forest to spring back into shape, for the flora and fauna to get back into its life cycle when we have tarnished it so much during the rest of the 8 months.
the same goes for the sea also. I live on the coast, and
Yeah,
for 4 months there's no fishing because fishing ecosystem needs to rejuvenate. So
exactly.
yeah, and it's the best time to sit back and do all your meditations at home, and you know uh, and work from home if possible. Great.
Chai
So
pakora.
right, right. Actually, the traditional wisdom doesn't really say chai pakora. It says you should have the light food, and it's now in the Navratri Ashwin month is when you start eat. In fact, now you fast for 9 days, and after that you have festival season to start eating. Okay. So on that note, please tell us what message do you want to give to your readers?
I think it's very important that you have to have the say the craving to travel, and if you are determined to travel, you should have the confidence in yourself that you have to have the courage to kind of lose sight of the shores and go into uncharted waters. Until and unless you have confidence in yourself, you will never be able to do something new and to explore your own potentials. That fear and that phobia in your mind will always be there. So all of us have the capacity to do things which we've not done in our lives. It's just, again, in terms of the mind over the body. All of us are equally equipped to travel, whether it is in terms of long journeys, whether it is in terms of adventure sports, or whether it is in terms of rediscovering yourself and going on to a lonely space and sitting in meditation and doing yoga and those kind of things. It's just that you need to kickstart that. You have the capability. You will be able to do it. It is just that you need to convince yourself. There's so much to explore, and it's just one lifetime. And I say that please go and explore before you get a knee replacement done. Why are you earning so much of money and keeping it in your banks that I will spend it after I retire? By the time you retire, you'll be too old to spend that money and to enjoy that money. So the idea is that if you're earning well, even if you're not earning well, you can still plan a very good holiday. But to store all that money in the bank and to use it when you're retired will be too late to actually do half the things that you had in your bucket list. You will never be able to do them. So work is there, but travel has to be part of your routine as much as work is. I think that's the most important message that I want to give, that don't leave traveling to the end of your life. Travel now. Now is the right time to travel.
In fact, Monica ji, the most frequently asked question that I have is that how do you fund your travels? How do you make money to travel so much? And so in response to that, I wrote a post saying that health is the only thing I need to travel.
Yeah.
There is nothing else that I need to travel. If I'm healthy, I can travel. You really don't. I mean, it's a big myth that you need a lot of money to travel. You need a resolve to travel. And today there are so many ways to travel that you really don't need too much. Yes, for a comfortable travel, you do need some money. But if you subtract the cost of living in a big city, it's actually nothing. But what you do need to travel well or to enjoy your travels is good health. And without good health, no amount of money is going to give you that happiness. You should be able to go out and walk a few kilometers. You should be able to, you'll have to do thoda upar niche, traveling up and down, even dealing with different time zones, different foods, everything. So health is the most important thing. And your book kind of drives that message very, very clearly that health is, if you have health, you can enjoy your travels and your life in general. So thank you very much for writing this book. And I'm going to recommend it to everybody. Use it as a ready reckoner when you, especially when you go on your adventure trips. Look at the things that you should be aware of before you go on an adventure trip. Look at the things that can potentially go wrong and how to deal with that. With all the and not just medical. She's covered insurance. She's covered cultural aspects. She's covered all kinds of things. You must read this. I'm sure you will pick up a lot of things that you were not at all aware of. I picked up a lot of things. Thank you very much, Monica ji, for this conversation. And I wish you all the best for the book. And I'm sure this is going to do very well.
Thank you for joining us on Detours. You can also join us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is Inditales, INDITALES. See you soon.